Hey y'all, welcome. My name is Sarah and I love to talk about movies. I do occasionally make videos about other things, like I'm a curly girly. I just moved to the city of Philadelphia, so I do have a few vlogs on those things. So if you're interested, I'll make sure to link them in the description below. But today I want to talk about A Cure for Wellness. So if you guys have ever seen Courage the Cowardly Dog, it's this really dark animated show from like the early 2000s. It's one of my favorites. And there was an episode with this creepy door-to-door salesman said that he had the cure, to improve your health. So when I saw this trailer, it reminded me of that. A Cure for Wellness starts with an older man working in an office building. You can see from the windows and everything that he works in like a big cities in a high-rise building. He's working either late at night or really early in the morning before everybody else is there. While he's working there, it looks like he has a heart attack, falls over, and, doesn't get back up. In the next scene, you see a much younger junior executive moving into his office. That same day, he's called into a meeting with the board, the senior members. During this meeting, they give him an ultimatum. They are implying that they found out about something illegal that he did in order to get his promotion. And they're telling him that if he can locate and bring back another senior board member that recently left the country, that they will bury his activity and put the blame for a much larger issue onto the senior board member. And he agrees. So he travels to the Swiss Alps to find the senior executive member who has gone on like a health retreat. While he's traveling, he's thinking back to the last time he spoke to his mother, and their conversation was kind of sad. Then we move to the present, where he's pulling up to this enormous castle in the middle of nowhere. It's in the mountains. He's let into the facility, locates the senior board member who is resistant. He doesn't want to leave. The young man, leaves for the day. He says that he'll be back. And on the way back down the mountain, there's an accident. And in the next scene, he wakes up and he's in the facility being treated for a broken leg. So he ends up having to stay there for a while to heal. And while he's there, he's talking to some of the other patients. He gets in touch with that senior board member again to try to make it very clear that the situation back in the States is very urgent and that he really needs to return to address whatever the issue is. So while Lockhart is there, he meets a young woman named Hannah. She's like the youngest patient. Next to him is the youngest patient at the facility. So she's kind of interested in him because he's new. He's much younger than the other patients. So she reaches out to him a few times and they talk a bit. Between speaking to her and speaking to some of the other patients, he finds out about a creepy backstory to the castle that they're staying in. He decides that if the other senior member is not going to leave, and he can't force him to leave, especially in his condition, that he is going to leave. And he's going to try to find a way to come back and retrieve him. So he travels down the mountain into the town to get a hold of a phone to update his job on what happened while he was out and his accident and everything. Apparently things have gotten much more dire back in the States. His phone call is interrupted. He is forced to return back to the facility, where he starts to explore a bit more. He agrees to undergo certain treatments that take him deeper into the facility, into different parts of the castle. And while he's there, he's determined to find out what the truth of that facility is. Because throughout the time that he's been there, patients have been talking about the cure and becoming cured, but no one can answer certain questions, and he's curious about the history of the castle and the people that used to live there, and what is the secret behind all the secrecy, I suppose. So he finds out what some of those secrets are, and moves from becoming a patient of the facility to a prisoner there. His treatments have a series of unpleasant side effects on his body and mind, and by the end, he's just determined to destroy the facility. More secrets are revealed, secrets from the past, his past, the past of that place, the castle, the people that used to live there, and it all culminates in a raging fire that starts to spread and consume the whole castle. In the last ending scene, he's traveling down the mountain with Hannah, and as he's traveling down, the senior board members are traveling up the mountain and see the fire and are like, what's going on? He tells them that the senior board member is dead. He moves past them and continues traveling down the mountain with Hannah, and as he is pedaling down, he starts to smile wider and wider, and that's how the story ends. The first thing that came to mind when I saw this film is atmospheric. Gore Verbinski, who's the director of the film, is known for bigger budget productions, control of large productions, large casting, I think is really what helped ground a lot of the details in this film. You have a huge cast of characters, some of them iconic actors and actresses, and simultaneous activities happening during the film. And you're located in a space that is enormous, size-wise from the exterior, and then in the interior. We're looking at so many different rooms within the castle. There's a pool, there's the dining area, there's bedrooms, there's the steam room. And then during the course of the movie, we see deeper levels. So there's a control over the environment that I really liked in the film. Nothing was overlooked as far as the design and the production, as far as costuming and the location, the setting. We really get a feel for this totally foreign kind of environment from, the exterior view when we're looking out over the mountains from the upper floors, traveling down the mountain into the town, going into the local bar, going to see a local vet. We get enough people and places that make the story feel very full. Even in the beginning of the film, where we're in that huge office building, we get a view of the city from inside the building. So we can see it's a very large city. We can tell that we're in a high-rise building. All of those details are really important in a story like this, where you're traveling internationally, number one, and we're entering several different types of worlds that people may not be familiar with. Corporate America, this spa environment that seems to have the style of previous decades. The spa, some of the treatments, the coloring, the uniforms of the staff, and all of that, to me, all those little details build a story by itself. And then we have the actual story. An ambitious young executive with a past and a history that we learn a little bit about is forced to travel to retrieve an older executive to keep his possibly illegal activities secret. And he is still processing some things that it seemed like happened right before he had to take this trip. It was difficult to say, but there were things in the story that just kind of were off. There were a tone off from the story. Him and Hannah's connection, that didn't make any sense to me. He's a full grown adult living in the modern world. She is someone who's lived in a very sheltered environment, and her reactions and responses, it was like someone who is in a fog and is not quite present with reality. So his focus on her, I could see, is because she has a slightly different perspective than most of the patients there. Her access to the facility is different. Her treatments are different. She doesn't go through the same things that the other patients do. And her background is totally blank. When he's speaking to the other patients, they start the conversation by letting them know who they are as far as their jobs. who they worked for and what they did, like their positions there. But when you start to put together certain sequence of events, like a lot of them feel very natural. Like this is a natural way to discover this interesting tidbit. When he was talking to one of the patients, she had done some research and found out a few things, and she was sharing it with him. And then when he traveled down into this town and he was talking to some of the locals there, he found out a bit more. Had to watch it a couple times to confirm that a few things didn't quite add up. The disappearing townspeople. And I'm like, how many people did y'all allow to just go missing before you rose up against the lord of the castle and, burned it to the ground? The fact that you allowed it to be rebuilt, it seems, immediately afterwards by a mysterious benefactor was also something that didn't make any sense, especially considering that those who survived this uprising and whatnot, like the townspeople still remember. So the fact that some random person who was extremely wealthy, had all this money, managed to have the castle rebuilt soon afterwards, no one recognized, or maybe they did recognize him. Was there some kind of retribution because they showed up, after finding all of these dead bodies, or enough people went missing, they revolted, killed the lady of the manor and burned the castle down, and then he shows up again, still has enough clout being the lord or whatever to get their help to rebuild the castle, because there's nobody else there. He couldn't fly in groups of workers. They rebuilt this place for him again. So I just didn't understand that part of it. And then the inbreeding thing was a disturbing detail, but I was not surprised by that. I loved all the creepy dream sequences. I liked them. I thought they were weird and creepy and disturbing, but they stayed within the realm of the story. They didn't come out with some random things that he hadn't seen before, or things that were not relevant to the story like they do sometimes in dream sequences. But the only thing is, I didn't feel very connected to any of the characters. I felt a lot of sympathy for them, but it just seems so separate, their experiences and their perspectives on their worlds, that it was difficult to feel connected. It's very atmospheric. It's got disturbing details. There were little things like the glass of water, the food appearing to move a little bit, which is interesting. There are all these little interesting details there. There is some violence, so just be aware of that. But not super gory, splashy violence. But there is some violence in it. But yeah, you guys let me know what you think. Thank you all for spending your time here with me. I really appreciate it, and I'll see you all next time.